It's wild, but I think influencers have shaped more of our faith than pastors have. Think about it. We scroll for hours every week, listening to people who look Christian, sound Christian, and say all the right things. But without realizing it, we start normalizing things that have nothing to do with Christ. It's crazy how, even as Christians, we can have the best intentions, wanting our homes to be true domestic churches where Christ is at the center and still be shaped by the world around us. Revelation tells us that God would rather us be hot or cold than lukewarm. But if we're honest, most of us are living right in that in between place, following Christ, yet quietly influenced by trends and attitudes that do not reflect his heart. That's why today I want to talk about 5 things influencers have brainwashed Christians, specifically Christian moms, into thinking are normal. Because it's time to wake up and build homes and hearts that truly reflect Him, not the culture. So, the first thing that drives me nuts is this idea that elaborate, expensive, or time consuming self care is necessary to feel fulfilled. We're told that if we don't make time for girls' weekends, spa days, solo trips, or pricey routines to fill up our cup, we'll eventually burn out and grow resentful from years of saying yes too often. But here's the truth: women don't usually burn out because they say yes too much. We burn out because of how we view those yeses. I have seen it again and again. Women who give endlessly yet stay joyful. The first person who comes to mind is Mother Teresa. She gave constantly and still radiated peace. When we start seeing ourselves as victims instead of willing participants in the sanctification of ourselves and our families, bitterness can creep in. We start viewing every task and interruption as something being taken from us instead of something being offered to God. That's the real source of burnout, not loving too much, but loving with this little secret resentment, this little secret expectation of getting something back. And the enemy loves to use that perspective to pull us into self pity. Now, I absolutely believe every homemaker needs self care, but there are plenty of women who do all the right self care things and are still miserable. Those activities, the ones I mentioned before, they can be fun, but they're not Christ centered self care that restores you from the inside out. God actually made self care pretty simple and attainable for everyone. It doesn't require a big paycheck or a giant block of free time or even a babysitter. The best kind of self care happens in small, consistent moments woven throughout your day. That's the only way it's going to be sustainable. The first and most important way to do this is to get time with God. You need this every day. It's better to scatter small pockets of prayer throughout your day than to chase one big impossible hour or even half hour. I take 10 to 15 minutes every morning without fail, and then I habit stack reminders to pause and check in with God throughout the day. This is what helps me keep my thoughts and my attitude aligned with His plan. The next thing you need is time with your spouse, your friends, or loved ones. Women release oxytocin when we connect face to face. Another big reason modern moms feel empty is because we've replaced real connection with digital substitutes. But God made us for presence, for laughter, for hugs, and real conversation. Even short interactions, a chat with a friend at the store, or a quick call to your mom, lowers stress hormones and boosts peace. Now, this takes intentionality. Back in the old days, women worked alongside their husbands or they gathered in the morning marketplace, and now we have grocery pickup. We have to create these moments on purpose, and it can be difficult, but it is definitely worth it. For my husband and me, it's as simple as taking a short walk after dinner. It's one of the easiest ways we stay close, and it doesn't cost a thing. Finally, care for your body. This doesn't require fancy products or a gym membership. Step outside for fresh air, water your flowers, walk to the mailbox, sit down and eat without distractions so your body can rest and digest. Take a few well chosen supplements. Simply stepping back and letting your eyes rest on something distant after staring at a screen for a while can really reset your nervous system and bring calm. Small, consistent actions like these all throughout your day bring far more peace and health than any self care weekend or crash diet ever could. The next thing is the prosperity mindset, the idea that a blessed life will always look perfect. You probably heard of the prosperity gospel, and unfortunately, it's still alive and well today, dragging homemakers into false expectations and quiet self pity. And it's not just about money. Even when influencers don't say it outright, the message is clear. If God's blessing you, your life's going to look perfect. An aesthetic home, a wonderful marriage, well behaved children, and a comfortable income. And I've actually seen Christian influencers teach that God wants you to be rich, that if you just shift your mindset into abundance, you will attract blessings. Now, there's nothing wrong with money itself, but Jesus never said, "Blessed are the rich in mindset." He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." It's very difficult to be poor in spirit if we're constantly chasing an abundant mindset. We should be searching for spiritual abundance, not just temporal abundance. When we do that, we start to believe that God's love is proven by how many temporal gifts he gives us. And that's simply not true. The reality is, God's greatest gifts are often the crosses that sanctify us. Remember Job, he lost everything, not because God was punishing him, but to prove his faith. And when those blessings were restored tenfold, it was a glimpse of what awaits those who persevere through trial. So if your home isn't picture perfect, if your husband doesn't bring you flowers every night, if your health or your family feels messy, those things are allowed by God. And because he allowed them, they're the very path he's using to sanctify you. There's no better way that you could come up with. And we'll never be fully satisfied in this world. And that's good. It means our hearts are longing for heaven, not for another influencer's version of perfection. And trust me, if you ever happen to see headlines, most of those influencers' lives aren't perfect either. The third lie is that constant exhaustion is just part of motherhood. We've come to believe that feeling resentful, overwhelmed, and tired all the time is normal, and that we're supposed to live in survival mode. I know this because I used to feel this way, and I should introduce myself. My name is Andrea. I am a Catholic wife and mom of eight. And when I felt this way, everything online told me it was normal. Every video, every meme, every post said, "This is just motherhood. You'll always be exhausted. Just hang on until this stage ends." But I wanted a big family, and I knew motherhood wasn't a short season. It was a long, meaningful chapter of my life. So it was hard to believe that I was meant to spend all these years feeling anxious and overwhelmed. So through prayer, reflection, and research, I began making small but life changing tweaks. I had to retrain my brain and conform my thoughts to Christ because there was this constant negative voice in my head. I'd never really taken notice of it before, and it was really pulling me down, really raising my stress. I was exhausted physically because I didn't know how to care for my body, and my blood sugar was unstable. I wasn't sleeping. My hormones were kind of a wreck. And spiritually, I was anxious and distracted. Too out of touch with God, too in touch with social media. But when I began to heal my mind, body, and spirit and align my days with God's rhythms, everything changed. I started practicing joy, prayer, and gratitude every day. Just as St. Paul teaches in First Thessalonians, rejoice always, pray without ceasing, give thanks in all circumstances. That verse became my daily pattern. Joy instead of resentment, prayer instead of worry, and gratitude instead of comparison. Slowly, my whole mindset began to shift, and I became a homemaker who had energy, who talked to God throughout the day, and who genuinely took joy in her life again. And if you're interested in the changes that I made to get to that place, please check out my 7-day free reset down below. So, another lie that we are told is that homemaking isn't enough. Everywhere online, we see homemakers praised for their side hustles, their brands, their goals, and it subtly sends this message that staying home isn't valuable unless it's attached to a mission or an income stream. We're told that to be a mom, the inspiring, successful, fulfilled woman, we need a platform, a purpose, a project. But the truth is, homemaking itself is the first mission and your greatest work. You're building a small domestic church, forming souls, and shaping eternity in ways the world will never recognize. Our society would look really different if motherhood was viewed as a sacred calling instead of something to get through. And on a side note, people sometimes ask me why I have this channel if I believe that homemaking alone is enough. The truth is, I never would have done this channel when my kids were little. Homemaking took everything I had. But now my children are older, I'm a bit more experienced, and I've learned to manage my home with peace and rhythm. That's the only reason why I can add something like this channel. And if it ever started taking away from my family's peace, I'd stop it in a heartbeat. Supporting my husband and forming well balanced children who love God, that's my vocation. Everything else is just frosting. If your children carry the love and faith that you've given them into the next generation, imagine what that will look like on Judgment Day. The ripple effect of one faithful mother's love could fill heaven. I love to think of the story of the Maccabees and her seven sons. And the last lie I'm going to talk about is that busyness equals a full life. Social media is full of moms glorifying hustle culture, the 4 a.m. morning routines, endless sports schedules, weekend outings, constant home makeovers, parties. We're told our lives have to be packed to have purpose. And if we're not always doing something, we're falling behind. But the truth is that little kids are happiness when home feels like a haven. Now, I have three teenagers, so I get that older kids want to go out and see the world. But your home should still be the heart of family life. Most of your energy should go into making your home a place everyone wants to be. And I used to do this, but as moms, we shouldn't be constantly creating errands just to escape our homes. I remember hearing someone from Europe tell me that the homes in Europe are built around courtyards. They're private spaces where families can gather in peace. And in contrast, here in the US, we build these big front lawns for show that rarely get used. I think the Europeans have it right. Our homes should be places of retreat, not display. Choose your activities wisely. Some of us need more than others, but constant running has never been normal, and it's really hard just to keep an organized house if you're always gone. True peace comes when we slow down enough to actually live the life that God has already given us. So, those are five things that influencers have brainwashed Christians into thinking are normal. And maybe we believe some of them without realizing it. Just realize that what is common is not normal. Those two words are not interchangeable. And what's normal now often leaves us exhausted and anxious. But Christ's version looks completely different. He calls us to peace, not fleeting comfort, but lasting transformation. You can't always change your circumstances. There will always be something that could be better. But with God's help, you can change yourself, your thoughts, your rhythms, your heart. That's what my 7 day Christian Mother's Reset was created to do, to help you start rewiring your mind, strengthening your body, and your spirit around God's design for peace. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week.